Today we're joined by Angelica, the former mayor of Merri-bek.
Hi.
We're going to chat about, the name change. Affordable housing is still an issue. It was back then. We're going to chat about bike lanes, planning council stuff, some motivational movies that unfortunately not enough people have seen. We'll see if Angelica and Peter have seen the movie that's going to come up. Also, council integrity, very important. So let's get into it. G'day everyone. Today we're joined by Angelica, the former mayor of Merri-bek, or I guess it was Moreland at the time.
Merri-bek, I was the mayor of.
Oh, okay.
Yes, we changed during the council term.
I see. Wait, so what years are we talking when you were mayor?
So I was the mayor elected at the end of 2022 and up until about the end of 2023.
I see. And no, it was it wasn't your choice, the name, by the way.
No, so we put that one to a public vote. There was a survey that went out to every resident within then Moreland, now Merri-bek. We had three options, and Merri-bek was resoundingly the winner. So as a council, we stuck with that one.
Yeah, I remember that one. So were you the mayor during that transition?
So yes and no, because the transition went over a couple of years to, I guess, update uniforms and signage as they were going to be updated already in the budget. It was really an ongoing process, but it was an exciting time and very history making to be part of.
Do you reckon Merri-bek's even better now? Would you say?
Yeah, of course.
Oh, because what was it as well? I was there was a stat I was going to bring up. So viewers might not be familiar, but so we're recording in Brunswick, part of Merri-bek Council. So Brunswick East, that was named 6th coolest neighbourhood in the world in 2023, and then
which is not true.
Really?
We are,
yeah. Well, I was looking back previous stats as well. So Fitzroy in 2019, Fitzroy was named 2nd, but then surprisingly, I guess. Time Out magazine, according to them, Brunswick is going downhill. Melbourne is going downhill because I was checking this year's stats, and unfortunately, Melbourne first makes an appearance at number 10, and they chose Windsor. I had to check Google Maps where Windsor is, but it's
in Melbourne.
Yeah.
No way. No.
I reckon we've got a combination of a bit of a housing crisis, a bit of a cost of living crisis. It's probably compounding that's making it a little less livable, unfortunately.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure last year they mentioned High Street was in.
Oh yeah, but one of the coolest streets. That's so embarrassing, actually. Yeah, we have. So I have an American housemate. I took her to High Street, saying "Would you believe this is the coolest street in the world?" And then there was this homeless guy offering us some wine, but we had to open the wine first. But he was very insistent we have some. No, I don't want anyone, but thank you. He kept following us, Donna just wants to get the fuck out of there. And, meanwhile, I'm still trying to tell her, don't worry, Donna, this is the best place to be in the whole world. Got it to Time Out. So, who knows, maybe that guy, maybe he was the one writing the reviews for Time Out magazine.
It does go back to the topic that it does feel seamless and no one really mentions anything about the change now. But I remember at the time, I'm not sure.
Oh, the name change.
Yeah, the name change. Depending on the demographic, I think there was obviously people who had some views, but now I think it's an issue with anyone. It doesn't come up at all. Yeah. Just people going through change.
And I think that's the thing. There were some people that cared a lot, I suppose, on either end of the spectrum, and then a bunch of people that, if they didn't know the history behind the name Moreland, I think once you find out about it and once you learn more, you're like, oh, actually, we cannot keep this name. And so, I think now that the change has happened. So for the viewers, sorry. So the council was called Moreland in around the 90s when Brunswick, Coburg and bits of Broadmeadows were amalgamated by the Kennett government, and it was named Moreland after the big Moreland Road that basically brings together Coburg and Brunswick. But that and the council area was actually then named after Jamaican slave plantation. So the guy who came and settled this area, Farquhar McRae, that was his grandfather's slave plantation in Jamaica that he named this area, Moreland, after. And of course, when you grow up with one council name, you just think, oh yeah, Moreland, whatever. But then we learned about the origins of the name and received a letter with outlining the proof of all of it. And that's when we made the decision that, no, we can't stick with this, let's find something better that we can all get behind and all and we'll all be proud of.
I was thinking earlier today, actually, I wonder, like, does the sort of chain of naming stop there at the Jamaican plantation? What if that was named after, something honourable? Who knows?
I had no evidence to prove that, so I stuck with the evidence that was given.
Irrespective, if you could have a really nice cow, and if you go and have that steak that you choose and then leave it out, it gets rotten, you're not going to eat it.
Sorry, slow down.
So
Yeah.
the beginning of it might have been a beautiful calf.
Yeah.
And so it's great, that Daisy's gorgeous calf, we raised it, and you sacrifice it, you gorgeous steak that you choose from the butcher to eat it, and you leave it out on the bench, and it's foul, right?
Okay.
Someone serves it to you to eat,
Okay.
you're still not going to eat it just because it's a gorgeous calf once upon a time.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah, but like, I'm saying, what if there was like, what's an honourable place to name something after? Well, don't actually.
That's Greek.
Okay.
The birthplace of the monarchs.
Actually, how can we kind of like New Athens? We have, New York, New South Wales. And don't you find it such a shame as well? In Australia, you go to all these restaurants and it's like, this is, Mediterranean cuisine, Chinese cuisine. The Australian culture, I think we need to define it more like, we should be proud of it. If Australian culture isn't something to be proud of, then we should just, ask to be annexed by New Zealand.
Well, they recently put a vote for something about Australian culture, and they said no.
I think, Angelica, would you agree that, many Australians are, reluctant to be proud of our culture?
I think it depends on what you classify as culture. Because I think for say people like myself, third generation Greek Australians, both parts are integral to who I am. And, you talk to the first peoples of this country, their culture is integral to who they are. And I think it's just, depends on what you define as culture. So there's definitely like values and norms that we have in Australia which are pretty great. But like with everywhere, there's the line with culture and then heading to nationalism. That's where you got to be a little bit careful.
I guess, I would see the difference as like, we like Germany, for instance, because we're like, the superior race versus, we like...
Bit of nationalism there.
Well, yeah, exactly. Versus, we like this country because of like, look how far we've come and what we've created now.
Yeah, and I think that's when, depending on who you ask, you'll get a different answer as to what is our culture.
But I guess
society.
On that point, I do like one of the points in Australia not being, I would say, proud enough of what we've achieved. I would say that obviously this goes with like a bit of reluctance. Like there is still room to improve, which is like that tempering against nationalism, as you point out. And I guess one of the ways I would we need to urgently improve Australia. Like our economy is so dependent on housing speculation, digging things out of the ground. I wonder actually during your term, and I guess the council has a bit of influence over housing affordability.
Yes.
What are some of the things you managed to achieve?
Yeah, so it's kind of in a few different ways. There's the one that you most often hear in the media about planning decisions coming to councillors to make a decision on whether it's an apartment building going up or something like that. The vast majority of planning applications were decided by council officers under delegation. The ones that came to councillors were often the bigger, more contentious ones. And that was such a tricky situation because you'd have some residents who would want you to outright say no to a development or put certain conditions on it to make it better, oftentimes. But the system that you're operating in, it's basically where the state government sets the rules for planning, councils have to enforce it, and then if you, say, try to impose, like ESD standards, environmental sustainable design standards that are far above what the minimum acceptable amount is, it's probably just going to get appealed by the developer and go to VCAT and lose or waste a significant amount of money and time, and that's ratepayer money. So trying to navigate getting as much as you can out of developers, but not pushing it too far that they go to VCAT and undo everything that officers had been doing. That was really tricky, and it not being well explained to residents that was the situation. So that's kind of that bit. And then the other bit, which was a lot more interesting and exciting, is that we had this vehicle set up called Merri-bek Affordable Housing, which was kept at arm's length to council. And this basically was looking into land that council owned, more often than not, like car parks, and how we could partner with community housing developers to try and, I guess, help those providers overcome like the hurdle of buying land in the first place. So council owns car parks, say, that aren't very well used.
Oh, it's easier for you to sell the car park. I see.
Exactly, like so prime real estate in Brunswick or in Coburg or even in Glenroy, like council owns these car parks. They're not really being used very well. We've got capacity for parking in other places. How can we provide this land to help get community housing off the ground?
Yeah.
So that was pretty exciting, but came from really the state government neglecting public housing and the federal government not funding it in the way that they used to. And so,
so this is like the next step. Yeah.
We had to come in and try and plug the gaps, and councils across Victoria and Australia did this, but really it would be a lot better if we had a state government that wasn't privatising public housing.
What sort of inroads did you make with that?
So there was one that, I can't remember exactly now, but there was one that has almost gotten off the ground in Brunswick, which is very, very exciting. And then there's some early work happening around central Coburg. So council owns the vast majority of the car parks outside around the library and the Woolworths, and then on the other side of Sydney Road near the leisure centre. And so I was really happy to be part of the team that pushed to redo the library, see if we can get some green open space, because it's quite concretey.
Yeah, it's a huge car park.
And what kind of housing can we stick on that and build it up?
Is
That
that
would be so
library with the
exciting.
big grass outside? Like in Coburg? Shows how much.
The library does not have grass. It's grim. It's Victoria Street Mall. So on the other side is where there's all the grass outside, like the leisure centre. That's quite a nice spot.
Oh, over that way.
In Coburg.
Coburg. Yeah, so like near the intersection of Bell Street and Sydney Road.
Oh,
Huge car park there.
Huge. Council owns most of that land. It's like, come on, we could do something really exciting with that and really revitalise that whole area. So long overdue.
Yeah, especially one of the good things that councils get to do is create more bike lanes as well.
Yes,
That's always
exactly.
good.
Yeah, so funding for bike lanes, pedestrian upgrades.
Yeah, because it's a virtuous cycle, I see. Like, as we get rid of car parks, people can't use cars as easily. They need to use bikes. And then if there are more bike lanes, that also encourages them. Buses, I guess, we shouldn't really word it like that, can we? We say, get rid of the car parks and force people to use bikes. There's,
I think the way that I think about it is when you're driving and you've got somebody in a separated, like a protected bike lane, it's off, and you're in these inner city streets, it's often a lot safer because they are physically separate from cars, and it reduces the incidence of accidents.
Oh, yeah.
It makes it safer for pedestrians too. And if you've got the infrastructure there that encourages people to walk or catch public transport or ride their bike, it kind of frees up the road space for sometimes like you might just have to drive somewhere, or you've got an elderly grandparent that needs to be taken to shopping or something. It frees up those spaces for those people that in that situation can't hop on a bike or can't get on the train.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a bit more integrated and would really go a long way to reduce our transport.
Well, part of the things that we've been discussing obviously is how to get people at local level active. And for whatever their self-interests are here, local, right? So, having and being part of a federal election once every 3 years and putting something in there, you're removed. State elections can feel like that too. So, but how do you get people at a local level to then feel part of and change? Because only through actually seeing transformational change and being part of it, do you then think, well, it's worth being part of.
Exactly. I think this kind of feeds into the fact that I think often with the two major parties, our expectations have been lowered. We've been told not to expect this sort of transport infrastructure, or that, the buses running like once every hour or not at all on a Sundays is good enough. Or that, our public schools can be underfunded by $2.5 billion, and that's that's okay.
What's happening with the suburban rail route now in Victoria? That's going to cost like 30 billion.
I do not know, but we've been basically consistently told to expect the minimal from our politicians when they're there to represent us. And so I just think that getting involved in, if it's like a local campaign around some sort of specific pedestrian safety issue, or even like clean-up days by the creek, they're, incredibly motivating. It helps you connect with people. But then also when those elections come up at council, state and federal, like making the most of them, which is
but I think also I feel like at the local level for councils to be deemed, viable and real, people have to be part of something that's transformational as well. Like what you mentioned, the car parks and so forth. And what can be done there, so they can see that something's tangible and they've had some skin in the game and what they've contributed to it beyond just the election. So they're the things that because you hear often that state governments say no, we're getting rid of the councils because they're ineffective, and then you even hear from councillors that come in and have that, and they're infected by their own Doge influenza, right? And they're like, we're going to get them out. And I'm like, I've heard these conversations, and I know some people as well that are part of the council, and I'm like, okay, but you want to have a conversation with me about efficiency versus effectiveness because you can't have an effectiveness conversation. So it's easy to have the efficiency one and say they're wasting, but now let's have an effectiveness conversation because you have no capacity for that and capability because that's where it really counts.
And I think it's that negative framing, right? People are, with councils at least, very used to punching down and blaming councils for different things, but actually they provide such vital services, the bins, but even just like your libraries and your parks.
I think it's the other. Personally, I think it's the other way. So if you go back to the definition of democracy, which is the rule of people, so I think it has to be at this level where you then lobby the state and federal. It should be the other way. I think you're right as far as what we've almost.
What do you mean? Sorry, the other way. We don't lobby the state government.
No, it's the other way. I think I agree with at least what I've inferred here. That we've dumbed people down to think, no, stick to your lane, worry about the bins, and do your bit here because we're in charge. The adults are in charge.
The council should have nothing to say.
Correct. Well, I'm saying it's the other way. The people should be dictating to the state and federal to say, no, these are our concerns. What are you doing in representing us to achieve this? And the only way that can resonate is with voices collectively saying, no, this is what we're doing here.
I think actually on that note, people seem to forget too often that, democracy or like any sort of political layer, it's always the will of the mob. Many people just accept being powerless and the leaders will be chosen by, a deity or just someone else. So you can demand it.
So to pick up on that, I guess what you're saying, any change that ever occurred of that of the mob, it still was always needed, to borrow common terms, a vanguard, right? So putting aside that we're not going to go on the streets and have a revolution, the vanguard can be the council.
Yes,
so
exactly.
So elect the people who are going to represent the mob,
standing up for
the local mob, to say, right, these are our people, this is what we're doing here, and this is now what we want you to do. But it has to have that groundswell. Otherwise, they are just a Byzantine bureaucracy, part of a small cog in a bigger cog that's just turning the time.
Actually, that reminds me, I was going to ask earlier, Angelica, do you have like a favourite mayor from fiction that says, it's like Mayor Quimby, is he?
The Ronald McDonald one. Didn't McDonald's have a mayor? They had one mayor, they did.
Was he the mayor as well?
One of the burgers was a mayor as well.
That's right, and his wife.
I don't know if he had a wife, but she had some nice buns.
I was thinking Jean Valjean, when he's Monsieur Madeline. Have you seen Les Miserables?
No.
Don't cancel me, no.
No, he cancels himself every episode. Every episode.
Nothing's going to happen this one.
I thought you cancelled yourself before when you were propositioning the Aryan race.
It was funny actually. I reckon anyone who's moderately interested in politics, I really couldn't recommend this movie strongly enough, or whichever form you want to watch.
I mean, it's a classic for a reason, but I just haven't watched it.
But when I won't spoil it too much, but Jean Valjean at one point in the story, he's the mayor, and there's a difficult decision to make. Like he's on the run, but if he like all these people depend on him. He's running the factory, and so like his sort of evasion of the law, like he's incentivized to leave the factory, but then like all these people depend on him, for work and that. And if he abandons the factory, if he abandons his role as mayor, then how are they going to still have families to feed and all this? It's a lot of duty. I feel it's
and that all happens in song.
This is all
Remarkable.
once again.
I would enjoy looking at actually probably.
It reminds me as well, there was some good advice one of my previous managers gave me. That, many people, they have all these goals, like maybe I'll, get more involved in politics one day, maybe I'll build my own house, whatever. But always in life, you seem to get more responsibility. You have a kid, you get like a promotion, and so there's always more added to your plate. This notion, like, I'll do this big project when I get free time, like, it's probably not going to happen.
Well, can I put conversely, when you also have a lot of free time, you don't do it either.
I guess. So I guess moral of the story is like
So what was the moral of the story?
Like know any good mayors.
Oh no, but like if people, the moral of the story is you should all watch Les Miserables and get motivated to be part of the revolution yourself and join now, because you have the most free time now, as opposed to like you'll never have this free time again until until you retire.
Before the guillotine falls.
Oh yeah, don't want to be on the wrong side of that.
No.
Moving on. We had other important things to discuss. Oh, but as well, what was it? There's some fun times as mayor. You get to open all the new galleries, new parks and things. What was your favourite thing to open? I guess.
Cut ribbons. And...
there wasn't that much ribbon.
No. They oversold the promise.
Yeah, there was a ribbon crisis.
Oh.
I don't necessarily know if like opening things was the most like satisfying part about being on council. I think for me it was the stuff that probably won't be done for another couple of terms, because it's getting all of the early thinking, like the Central Coburg revitalisation stuff. That's going to be such a long-term project, but also, nothing's been built yet, but I feel like it is the most satisfying because it's going to happen finally. And instead of saying this is too hard, like the council's actually going to look at it properly. Another thing though that we did do during my year as mayor is that there were like a couple of reports of sexual assaults along the Merri Creek. This was after quite a few of the earlier like really serious instances, and we decided that instead of just like putting out a statement or just saying something, we thought that we would actually have a series of events along the creek to talk about the problems and what we could do to make it safer and to increase visibility for people that are using the creek path. We had a really good turnout and really good like level of participation, and that included like we had a community forum. We also then had a walk along the creek and identified hotspots of where people had felt unsafe and opportunities for change. And then that ended with us having a bit of a celebration, like a little festival by Joe's Farmers Market, which was really, really like a good way to bring people together, because we know that like when there's areas out in public that feel unsafe, one of the best things that we can do is to bring more people in and add to that passive surveillance.
Yeah, if it's just a more popular place.
Yeah, like it's more popular, you just know that there are people around. So yeah, that's something that was a process that I think, I was really actually quite proud of the fact that we did that instead of just shying away from it, because it's like a whole societal problem, but we thought, what can we do to try and have some sort of difference? So
I like some of the points you raised, like for instance the Coburg drive, the car park and potentially public housing and so forth. Is there some sort of I'll say lens that as a councillor / mayor, whether you have different roles and responsibilities, that you look through any decision making to say, okay, does it fit within our vision, mission statement that says, okay, although this thing could be something we have to do now, because let's say the sexual assault going on, but what the solution could be, it also has to align with our vision of the 4 years.
Yes.
As in, because so no one can't be just reactionary and saying, no, this is just what I need to do now. So it's a great idea.
Yeah.
But it just still doesn't meet 80% of the vision, for instance.
Yeah, well, I think there's a few different layers. So the way that this initial consultation on our guiding principles for the Central Coburg revitalisation, that happened because of notices of motion submitted at council. That really kind of kicked off that framework, and so like when that was done, I was able to put in these guiding principles, and we had amendments from other councillors that beefed that up a bit, and so that guided the way that we did consultation, which then gave us what do the residents want for the area, which was great. It was aligned with exactly what we wanted, so it's good. And that's like the overarching vision that then sits within the council plan, and that guides like the next 4 years of work. As an individual decision maker, and this is the good thing about being one of the Greens councillors and being part of the party, is that we've got state and federal policies that we can look at to see how our decisions lining up with that. We've also, as the Merri-bek branch, got localised policies that we take to each of the council elections that go through a democratic process within our branch. And as councillors, like we would just sit and talk about the proposal, just what are the pros, what are the cons, what do we really want to get out of this, like how much public housing can we try and advocate for here? How can we get more green space and make it more pedestrian friendly? Can we revamp the library? Can we do it in a way that's bigger and better than what it is currently? So that's a very long way of saying you guide the consultation through like the formal political means of getting stuff through the council chamber. But before that, you talk to your colleagues, and you always have more people to talk to and to rely upon to help guide your decisions.
So how did you find navigating, and I'm sure it was a learning experience, but being a Greek too? You obviously have logic and politics in the DNA, naturally. So how did you find learning, navigating politics and politicking?
It was a really interesting learning curve. So before I was elected to council, I had been involved in refugee rights activism for quite a few years, like on and off throughout high school and my early years of uni. And so that really threw me in deep to the world of organising and activism, and getting consensus out of different groups of people who are on all shades of the political spectrum, but are there for that one issue that they care deeply about. So that was like an early introduction. And then I was lucky enough to be part, I guess, of a couple of like fellowships and campaigning and internship opportunities in MPs' offices and Greens offices.
You were already convinced the Greens is for me?
Well,
how did that happen?
Yeah, so it was through actually the refugee rights activism work. So I could see that the Liberal Party, the coalition, were terrible and quite proud of their cruelty towards refugees, and the Labor Party was also engaged in an absolute race to the bottom. And you'd have whispers of some MPs saying things that were sort of okay, but actually, like, I just thought, why not join a party that has consistently stood up for human rights and has never wavered on that? So it was like there was that element, but at the same time, I could also see that there were these really awesome lawyers and brilliant advocates pushing through the legal system to try and get quite sick refugees from offshore detention and the kids that were detained offshore into Australia. And they had some wins, but most times when there'd be a win, the government, with the support of whoever was in the opposition, they would just change the laws, they'd tighten the loopholes, which meant that the other people left behind couldn't be helped. And I guess that, and growing up in a safe labour seat, sitting underfunded schools, and when you don't get investment in your area, it all kind of combined to like make me think, where does power sit? Power sits in the parliaments and the councils, all levels of government. And so if the people in there aren't representing our best interests, we should just replace them. Without leading to the Greens.
And then I guess if they aren't doing it, like I'll just do it myself, sort of thing.
A little bit of that. Whether it's myself or supporting others who share that vision.
Ultimately, you did do it though. So.
Well, I mean, ultimately, yes, I did do it, but also like
Also-
I consistently campaigned and supported others too. So like my first proper Greens campaign was in 2019 for the federal election in Wales
Were you
as a volunteer.
Oh, I see.
No,
I see.
as a just a regular volunteer, just handing out how to vote cards.
That would have been, was that Tim Reid running that?
No, so it was Adam Pulford.
Oh, he ran
Yeah.
February. Oh, okay, yeah.
So Adam was my first Greens campaign that I probably got involved in.
Yeah, I saw actually, I was curious, I saw a video of Adam in the children's UN. I was surprised that, such a thing even exists.
Oh, the UN Youth.
Oh, is that what they call it? Oh, yeah, but he must have been hooked, since like 5 years old or something, I guess. I should, I'll have to get him on as a future guest, actually.
So what are you doing now?
So I'm currently working, surprise, in the refugee rights advocacy space, which is has been pretty great. So I've been doing community organising formally since the start of the year, and it's been really, really good. Did a lot around the election, but really hoping for some better policies too. Yes.
Yeah, I saw there were the scorecards. I remember for the viewers. But actually, on that note, I remember when I was running for the council elections as well. This was back in October last year. It was a pleasant surprise to me how many groups came forward. Like we demand like bicycles for Merri-bek, and what are you going to do about it? Or, we demand climate action for Merri-bek, that sort of thing. I was so puzzled though. The Traders Association. So for people who aren't familiar, so there's a Traders Association that represents Sydney Road, the main road here, just in Brunswick. And I figured I'd go and meet them. I was surprised they hadn't reached out because, same as all the other groups, this is your time to have influence. They said, we want to remain politically neutral. We're not going to talk to any politicians. I thought, are you fucking kidding me? This is your number one chance to have influence. It was some other non-government organisations as well. I'm involved in a few of those, and the volunteers, they had that same reaction, we shouldn't be political, we shouldn't say anything during the election. No, it's the complete opposite. I don't know, you must have had a few of these groups as well. What is they're a great idea, don't you agree? To form one and to send these to the candidates, hey, we care about beer in Brunswick, for instance. What are you going to do about it?
Well, I think it's these sorts of groups running and having candidate pledges and surveys. They're really, really important. So we had so many. There was environment, there was climate, there was transport, there was stuff in Palestine. I'm going to miss other things, but there was a lot that we had, and it's pretty good because it forces candidates to think of their policy positions on these core issues, and it also makes you stop and think, actually, yes, our community does care a lot about this. How, if elected, am I going to best represent these parts of the community? And even if not elected, how, in the election campaign, am I going to further these issues? In if there's candidate forums or in posting online or whatever. So, it was good. It's a good part of democracy. It needs to happen.
Yeah, there was one group, animal rights. I remember, they wanted to, for instance, end live animal exports. I was already in favour of that, but they highlighted as well a few niche issues, banning the sale of hunting trophies or something like that. A few issues I wasn't aware of, but once I hear about it, it seemed like a no-brainer. And so I think perfect case of how this works. And sometimes I normally say that emailing politicians and that is pointless. You should kick them out. But in this case, it seems where you can email political candidates and it can actually be very useful.
Yes, but on the emailing politicians note though, at the council level at least. Once you get a dozen or 2 dozen emails on an issue, that is still a significant number of people getting in touch. And I imagine, and I know actually that at the state and the federal level, they do have to log every form of correspondence that they have, so it will track how many people contacted them on this issue.
Who are they logging it to?
It would be within their own office.
It's like any ministerial, working for federal government agency, they have to then respond if it's a particular issue.
Okay.
So, I mean, there's different scales of getting involved and holding your politicians accountable, but McNuggets is one. So,
I want to actually go back, Peter, you alluded to before the fact that some of the people who come on, especially for council elections, you know, they're, let's just say, a bit crazy. We've seen them during the candidate debates about, I mean, just before we started, Peter and I were chatting, there was this Labor guy in Western Sydney. He successfully banned books from the local library, any books that contain same-sex parents as characters. The books got banned. This is a Labor guy in, like, you know, 2023, 2024. There was... definitely Labor. If we're going to risk defaming people, but that's why I've got to get her name correct. Mohammed Hussein, Anab Mohammed, in Melbourne, she was caught up in multiple assaults. There was one, the police ended up dropping the charges, but the story that seems to make the most sense to me is she started a fight at a gay bar, just walking past, yelling out slurs. That escalated into a fight, and she got the shit beaten out of her. She was a counsellor at the time, and she's caught up in multiple assaults. And you think, like, what? These are the best people we can get to be counsellors.
Well, it's the best people that nominate.
Can I just say though, on those sorts of things, around counsellors' behaviour and code of conduct things, I think for me something that is really important, and there's constantly stories that come out about this around integrity in decision making and conflicts of interest. Looking at numerous IBAC investigations, even back in the 2020 council election when we had the voter fraud happen, where the Labor person who ended up being elected was essentially found to have paid people to take people's ballots out of their mailboxes.
Wow.
And to fill them out and to result in him getting elected. So
they must have stolen a lot of ballots then.
So I think for me, and there was a whole VCAT process, it was a whole thing.
So the results still stood?
Well, because of it's quite difficult in terms of, because with the ballots and the way that they're done, once the voter declaration is separated from the ballot numbers itself. So, like say when you
so I guess they don't know what the impact was.
You don't know which one's a legitimate ballot and which one's not.
Yeah.
And that was reported by people saying that they never got their
I see.
ballots in the mail. Staff at the VDC noticed that there were some duplicates of some. So for me, when I think about councillor conduct, I think about integrity in decision making around conflicts of interest with developers, for example.
Oh, that's bigger concern than crazy people. Okay.
I think that
the risk of its reputation.
Well, exactly. It ruins the reputation of everybody. It undermines integrity and trust in politics, which bleeds into like everything that we do. So I think for me, it's the integrity and the honesty in like your actions as an elected representative, and even in campaigns that are being started that are baked in half truths.
Yeah.
That's not good enough.
Yeah. Well, we were mentioning it before, like all this talk about various individual politicians, and I mentioned a few, and I was saying, whether it's Jessica Landy or anyone else, and I get people saying, well, at least she tells the truth. I'm like, that shouldn't be the lowest common denominator that we should accept.
Absolutely bad.
That's like, no, we shouldn't be saying, well, at least she tells it as it is. No.
Well, you see as well, actually, many people who are still caught up in the two-party system, I might say, like, I don't like how the Liberal Party has, like, a track record of, dodginess. And they'll say, like, oh, they're better than Labor. Like, yeah, I don't like Labor either. So, well, you see in the US, I want to avoid that.
Yes, it's a whole other situation.
But on a brighter note than but back to the refugee stuff. Making some more progress at the moment. You feel what's the next big issue?
Are you lawyering?
Not yet.
Okay.
So I am currently undertaking this practical legal training to be admitted to practice as a lawyer. So I'm doing that training as we speak, which is very exciting. I finished my law degree 2 years ago, a bit of a break, and now doing that. But in terms of the broader refugee rights movement and where things are at, like, I want to be hopeful, but the fact is that the Labor Party, like, passed some of the most awful draconian laws really in our country's history. At the end of last year, they ran through 3 bills, and they kind of mirror like what the US is doing. So the worst parts of it are basically having our own Trump-style travel ban. So you can ban people from whole countries from coming into Australia. And then the other most...
They haven't used it yet.
No, but the fact is that these laws exist.
Oh, I guess like they would be planning on using it, you would think, yeah. Otherwise, why create it, yeah.
Yeah, why create it if you're not going to use it? And if you're not going to use it, just repeal the thing. And then the other part is around basically giving the government greater power to deport people, and if you don't assist in your own deportation, you can go to jail for that.
Oh, that's curious.
So deporting people back to danger, like war, torture, persecution, the whole reasons why people flee and become refugees, if you don't help the government deport you, you could be in prison for that. Like, that's just insane. Insane that the Labor Party that says that they campaign on fairness and, you know, everyone has a fair go, that is absolutely ridiculous.
Like, they punched through a whole lot of policy work on a late sitting before the election.
Yeah, so that was part of the 3 brutal bills that were rammed through, which are just truly disgusting. And even, you know what, if the Liberals were in power, like, Labor would have been opposed to them. They were opposed to this sort of stuff when they were in opposition. But they were in government, so they just rammed it through with the support of the coalition. So that's on a bit of a grim note. But on a slightly better note, though, I think that there's a lot of opportunity in terms of increasing, I guess, the leadership training and capacity building across refugee-led community groups and refugee-led communities.
Oh, okay.
I think that,
for the viewers, what's the one you're part of? Australian.
We're
Oh,
not going to say that one because I'm not. But just across the sector, across the activist and the advocate sector for refugees, I think that there's a really good opportunity and a good push to be supporting the advocacy to be led by those that are most impacted by the decisions being made. So, yeah, I'm really quite keen to play my part in helping, along with that.
Okay, sure. Actually, on a much brighter note, let's move on though. In the previous episodes, we introduced a game. Guess the quote, guess the policy. I've prepared one. You've got one as well, Angelica. Do you want to go first?
Okay, so I've got 2 quotes.
Okay.
Yep. And they're the same sort of vibe, but they're said by different people. So the first one is, I just have to build up dramatic effect. Okay. They'll tell you you're too loud, that you need to wait your turn and ask the right people for permission. Do it anyway.
Oh, definitely sounds like a woman.
Yeah.
It's sexist then, right?
No, we're the ones that cop that you're too loud.
Exactly. They have to deal with it. Yeah. It's or it could have been Americans as well. People tell Americans they're too loud. It was well, there's a mate of mine. He's partially deaf and he's American, so he's like extra loud. And there was a no, he's a good guy. Anyway, but
is it a politician?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I would guess Julie Gillard.
No.
Oh, okay.
I don't want to say anyone like Thatcher or anything.
Because why would I think of Thatcher?
Yeah, I know, that's what I'm saying.
Alright, US was right. Woman politician.
Oh, she's loud and she's a woman. Sorry, she's American and she's a woman. I see.
That's one.
Oh, no, it's Kamala Harris, I would guess.
No.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay. Now I'm just naming female American politicians, but Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Oh, just a second.
Was
there any more to...
No. Not really. Again, the personalities of the American politicians, it's part of the same horse race.
Yeah.
I've been getting into it lately.
I don't mind the theatrics of it.
Yeah.
But as far as, as you said before, the 2-party system.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, like that overall grim, and especially what's happening in LA. But there's a lot of very exciting like Democrat primary races happening.
Oh, sometimes
Really exciting.
sometimes they're preferential voting, aren't they?
Well, there's really like I think some cool opportunities for new voices. But I'm just watching on Instagram, so I don't know.
Can we go back to that quote though? What was aren't some what if some person is too loud and too aggressive? That's possible, isn't it?
It's always possible that someone would be too loud and too aggressive.
Okay.
But statistically, as a woman in politics, you're very likely to be told that you're too loud, you need to wait your turn, and you need to ask for permission.
Yeah. I can say, yeah, that does.
It checks out.
I could definitely sympathise that, women are probably more likely to cop that criticism.
Even young people too. Young
Yeah.
people from diverse
You're too
backgrounds.
uppity.
Did you find that
There was a bit of that, yeah.
on both fronts?
Wait, the young, yes.
Hang on.
There was definitely a lot of comments that, like the subtle, I think, intersection of age and gender. Because I was 21 when I was first elected to council.
You were the youngest mayor, weren't you?
For our council, yes.
Yeah.
So I was, I think I was 23. Yeah.
Did you get council slang?
But, people telling me,
Yeah.
constantly council spanked. Yes.
Because how's
From all angles, all the time.
Especially for the listeners. So I understand, like most councils, including Merri-bek, the councillors get elected, and then the councillors choose the mayor.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right.
Did everyone step back, or how did it happen?
No, so it was not a step forward, Angelica. No, it was contested. But that's fine, and that's democracy. It's how it works. But I was very lucky to be elected mayor, and
There would have been like other Greens people with you.
Yes.
Like you would have been the newest out of all of them.
No, so we from the 2016 to 2020 term, there was only one of the councillors that repeated. So there were 3 new Greens councillors elected in 2020.
Oh, interesting.
So it was got a few of us newbies.
And you just gave a very compelling speech, won over all the other councillors.
Majority.
Back to the question, you
Yes.
did find some, I guess, criticism or resistance being young and female.
Yes. There was a lot of you're too young, you've been brainwashed by the Greens, you don't know what you're doing, stay in your lane. A lot of comments about my education. People thought that I wasn't educated. I'm like, all right. I think it was a bit weird. It was, I think, really at like those high moments. So around the name change, around a lot of Palestine advocacy, that brought a lot of the people out of the woodworks.
What was the lane that they wanted you to stay in?
Well, they say roads, rates, and rubbish.
Right.
As the traditional thing.
And these are council.
Oh no, I mean, so there was like members of the public, residents, there was media, the whole thing. But it's funny. I think as the years progressed, I kind of realised that no matter what you do, people are going to be annoyed with you. So if you're going to annoy them, you may as well do it for a good reason. You may as well do it for something that's worth it. So
I was reading as well in The Prince. He says that you should do all your politically unpopular things immediately as you become the prince, because like you're not going to be that sort of. They if they prefer the previous prince, they're a bit uneasy about who's this new person, and like it's really hard to build up any sort of like love, and so like they're not expecting too much when you immediately come in, and so like that's the time to get the most.
And Prince was all about the revolution.
I should listen to more of that.
I saw you were Machiavelli.
Have you read the book, by the way?
you know what? Maybe those uneducated comments.
You get the quotes that they're all throwing at you from. Florence and
I don't know, maybe it's not
Venice.
to read in this book, I'm not sure. Actually, on that note, why don't I'll give my
So
Yes.
is it true that power does corrupt?
I would say absolute power would corrupt.
That's fair.
I think that all healthy democracies have to have checks and balances. And
I agree. The one thing that governments should have is good governance.
yes, very
Which we've
much
seen
so.
when it doesn't, you can elect yourself into multiple roles and do what you want.
Well, yeah, exactly. Just appoint yourself supreme leader of the world, basically. But
it ended up being, proven to be a good thing. Scott Morrison got the
Award.
highest award
He
yesterday.
did.
But how
Kudos to him.
he only got one. He didn't get, 5 awards for the 5 ministries.
He only had to smirk in one photo.
really disgusting, yeah. No, I think
Lovely man, lovely man.
yeah, the architect of our current immigration system.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
But yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
He made Rudd look absolutely wonderful man.
Yes. Yeah.
But on that notion of him getting carried away, so the quote I've got prepared is
Oh yeah, sorry.
oh no, good.
Yeah.
Peter and Angelica, you might be able to guess it. The quote is, "I am the Senate."
Senator?
It's like Star Wars or something. I haven't seen Star Wars. I don't know. It just gives me Star Wars vibes.
I was going to think something stoic there. I thought it was Senator, but
Oh no, but Angelica, you were correct. It was from Star Wars.
Yes.
It was Emperor Palpatine in.
I have not seen any of the Star Wars.
I was going to say I love my cinema, but I don't watch Star Wars.
But
There's something from Alien I thought about.
But there is a more serious note to it. This is definitely like a homage to it. If not, it's not word for word. But there was a famous quote beforehand from, not from fiction. It might be apocryphal. But the quote is, "The state, it's me." The state is in the government.
I like that.
Yeah. But I guess this was said by a real person. So yeah, who was that?
Oh, that's the question.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but before Palpatine said it.
No, I don't know.
I'm assuming some Roman.
No. So we're talking somewhere between like 1500 and 1800.
You lived a long time. Wow.
Oh, I guess if we're not going to get.
Oh shit! Sorry, I already cancelled my here. I am the state. Napoleon.
Close, very close. Oh, it was in Europe.
Yeah.
Does it sound European?
Like,
Can you say with the
split
accent?
like the continent, like geographically split the continent.
The original quote was "L'état, c'est moi." So in French.
Rousseau or something?
Yeah.
Oh no, but he wasn't in charge. He's a philosopher, isn't he?
Yeah, that's right.
Anyway, it's Louis XIV. So he was the one who established the Palace of Versailles, and so I think it's interesting because so when he established Versailles,
Way to intellectually emasculate us.
I studied the French Revolution in high school. I wasn't sure about that.
But for the listeners' benefit, the part of the reason for establishing Versailles, this palace outside Paris, was if you want to be close to me, the king, you've got to come live in my palace. There were rooms provided. It's a big place. But the thing is, by isolating all the nobility away from Paris, so they had less influence in the city, they got more influence, they thought, over him. But then as well, there's that saying, keep your friends close, keep your enemies closer. And creating the palace, separating them from the city was a way to sort of cement his power and indeed become the state himself.
Interesting.
But then, so that was Louis XIV, but then Louis XVI is the one who was killed in the French Revolution.
Yeah.
Gotta be careful where those swords of Damocles are hanging.
Yeah. Anyone who likes the revolution should definitely watch Les Miserables.
And we've come full circle.
Callback.
There we go.
But you had another one? We were gonna.
Yeah. Well, you guys are definitely not going to guess this because this is someone running in one of the Democratic primary races that I follow on Instagram, and I just think she's really cool.
Oh, it's a she. Okay.
It's a she.
Narrowed it down.
Spoilers. Okay, so the quote is same vibe as the other one.
Mm-hmm.
The question, why not me, is the question I have to ask. It's the question we should all be asking when there's a 34 count convicted felon in the White House. When billionaires are playing politician, you need to be asking, why not us?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I like that.
Definitely won't go.
Oh,
No. This was because I was scrolling and then she was like, I saw the video and I thought, oh, this is perfect for the podcast.
I'm not going to guess it.
No, okay, so her name is Deja Fox and she's running in the Democratic primary race in Arizona's 7th district. Some random place in Arizona, but she worked on Kamala Harris's campaign and has got a big following online. And she's 25 and running for Congress, which is very cool.
Oh, okay. Oh, wait, this is her first,
her first
foreign
year,
to
her
I
first,
definitely would have.
thing as a candidate, yes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But,
And it's just,
I very much resonate with that idea, why not me? I mean, that's why I got involved in politics, because especially, the non-human party, I don't know if you've been to the website, but converted just yet. But,
I've been to the website, I haven't been converted.
Okay. But standing up for the rights of animals and robots, and nobody else is doing it, so someone
Well,
has
the
to.
ultimate question for her and anyone else like that is, what are her life experiences then? No, I'm kidding. Just kidding.
But,
Immediately, trauma flashback.
it sounds as though you endorse this one as well.
Yeah. Yes.
Oh, I've given. That's
why I
risky.
sold
I've given some quotes that I don't endorse. This one, I am the state. I'm not going to say that. I mean, part of the podcast is meant to show that Fusion and all the other guests who come on aren't as crazy, down to earth.
And we're going to give you a stamp later that says you're not insane. So
Thank you so much.
That's all right.
I really needed that.
and we'll send you a plaque later on.
Thank you.
But
With all my other clubs.
Angelica, if the listeners are feeling, energized to take some extra action, how would you encourage them? How would you push them? Yeah.
Yeah. So there's
Nudge them, maybe.
Yeah.
no, gently welcome.
Yeah. Well, that's even
better.
more inviting.
See?
Depending on what you're into.
Gently welcome. So if you want to get involved with Greens, whether that's at a local level, we've got state election coming up next year, which will be very, very exciting. You can just go onto the Victorian Greens website and sign up to become a member, and join the local branch that you're in, and you can get involved that way. Or if you don't really want to get involved with a political party just yet, you can also just find out if there's those local advocacy groups. So there's the Merri-bek Bug, the bicycle users group. There's Walk on Merri-bek, all around pedestrian safety. There's a bunch of groups around the suburbs in Merri-bek that do litter cleanups and creek planting days. So there's just so many ways to get involved. And on the bigger picture, if you just look up climate activism or refugee rights activism or anything that you're passionate about, I think just getting to know people on a one-on-one level in political or non-political circles is just it's a really good way to feel a little less alone and to really have that collective impact.
It does have an impact, yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Very good.
Okay, bye.